was returned today on the trial of the 3 People's Liberation Front members. All were sentenced to 15 years. The movement first claimed attention last year with an explosion on Gilbert Street. A warning was given, but damage to property was extensive.
Walked down the street looking in shop windows the way you do, and there was the same dress.
Thanks. Come here. Empty your pockets. Hurry up. Let's have your jewellery. All of it. And that.
In the economic summit today, progress was made on the Japanese import quotas.
Governor here. Thank you, Mrs. Spencer. Yes, I'll see her in the morning.
She's here?
She's here.
Good. Homely?
Yes.
Sign here. There.
Right. You'll now have a bath. Undress in the cubicle and put on the dressing gown.
Come on, will ya? It's be 5 minutes now.
Are we too busy, Miss Black, to hear the bell?
I was just on my way, Chief.
Just see that those bells are answered.
Yes, Chief.
In there again. Put your clothes on and quickly. I'll give you 3 minutes. The doctor's waiting to see you.
What do you want?
Not again.
Thank you, nurse.
Here. Take your things. And that.
Come along with me. Good night.
Good night,
Good night,
Mrs.
Mrs.
Spencer.
In you go, Carol. See she gets some fresh water, Miss Black.
First film has come in of the explosion in North London we announced at the end of news at 10. Few facts have been cleared as yet, but there are known to be many injured and some dead. Police have sealed off the area, and we will keep you informed if any further news comes in.
Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Terrible, isn't it? There was no warning. That's the first time the PLF have actually killed anyone.
Well, there's a question mark on the headline, Charles.
Yeah.
And according to the news this morning, no one's claimed responsibility yet.
Still.
Still?
It's odd it should have happened on the day that she was sentenced, isn't it?
All right, Dalton, stop out. Dad, come on. Hurry up. Through there. All right, back to yourself. Hurry up, girl. tray out here. Down there. Come with me.
Give your name and number to the governor.
376649. Dalton.
How are you feeling this morning?
I don't understand. 15 years. I didn't plant any bombs.
You were found guilty of conspiring to manufacture.
I believed in the group's aims, its political philosophy. I just handled the paperwork, pamphlets, distribution. I didn't touch any explosives. I don't understand.
You can appeal, you know. Have you spoken to your lawyer?
We didn't have a lawyer.
Ah.
You see, the group felt, well, feels that lawyers are just another branch of the establishment's army. We had a friend sitting in court with us, a Mackenzie advisor.
Ah, 1970, Mackenzie versus Mackenzie Court of Appeals decision. Well, it was your choice, Carol. My own opinion is that a good lawyer would have served you better. You can still brief one for appeal if you want. We can supply you with an application for leave to appeal form and one for legal aid. Do you want that?
I don't know. I suppose so. Will it do any good?
Well, it can't do any harm. Now, the important thing is you mustn't despair. There's a fair chance that your sentence could be reduced on appeal. And in any case, you don't need to serve 15 years. There's a third remission for good behaviour. You'll be eligible for parole after 5.
There's also the time she spent on remand, madam.
Yes, what's that? 8 months. That counts as time already served. Look, you're young. It's not the end of your life.
Why am I in that cell down there? Am I on solitary confinement?
It's the observation unit, Carol. Some of the women down there, well, they have problems. You are down there because it is standard procedure. See, anyone sentenced to 5 years or more has to spend 28 days under observation. It's not solitary confinement.
So I'll be mixing with the other prisoners then?
No, not exactly.
Well, it is solitary then.
Well, you'll be able to exercise with the other inmates from the unit.
I don't understand.
Well, although I don't insist on it during this period, you can do some work, but only in your room.
Room? That's a strange euphemism for a cell like that.
When you come up into the wings, then you'll be able to personalize your cell.
I haven't had a cigarette since yesterday.
You'll be able to buy tobacco. You'll be given a week's money in advance, which will be deducted from you when you're released.
I'm afraid you won't be permitted to have matches in the unit. One of the women there, well, it's just a ruling. But when you want to smoke, all you have to do is to ring your bell, and the duty officer will give you a light.
Rang my bell last night. It seemed ages before anyone came.
What time was this?
What? I don't know. It was late, I suppose.
I went off duty at 9:30, Chief.
Cell doors are not opened after 9 p.m. except in an emergency. What were you ringing for?
I wanted to go to the toilet.
Do you have facilities for that?
How would you like to use a pot?
This is not the Hilton.
Carol, up to now you've been a prisoner on remand. Now you're convicted, the rules are different. Your assistant governor will tell you about your induction letters, visits, privileges, etc. I think that's all I need say at the moment. Mrs. Armitage, see that she's taken back to her unit, will you?
Come with me, Carol.
And I'd like a word with Miss Black.
This way.
Why wasn't that bell answered? If anyone rings the bell, I expect it to be answered immediately.
I can assure you they are, madam.
Even though majority of the calls are for no good reason. But with respect, madam, there has been trouble with the bell system in the observation unit. It's faulty and sometimes fails to operate.
Well, get the engineers to look at it, will you, Mrs. Armitage?
Yes, madam. There is a daily bell inspection.
Well, that unit's supposed to be checked every 20 minutes.
Yes, madam.
Can we have the next one, then, Mrs. Armitage? Oh, she seemed completely disorienting.
Well, so should I be if I just got 15 years. She is suffering from Severe mental shock. During the time she was on remand, she built up a fair degree of stress. She's a very highly strung girl.
Do you mean she's unstable?
No, just a little neurotic, but then aren't we all? Just a matter of degree. She's an educated girl from a middle-class background, and the prison experience always hits that time hardest. See, apart from the shock of her sentence, she probably seems disorientated because I prescribed the Old Faithful.
The Old Faithful?
Largactil.
Oh.
Oh, she needed it last night, believe me. I shall keep her on it regularly for a couple of weeks, then I'll ease up. She ought to have adjusted enough by then. We'll just wait and see.
You know who she is, don't you, Greta?
What?
Her in front.
Oh.
Carol Dalton. You know, the one who's been on trial for the bombs and that.
Oh.
Saw her come in, didn't I? She's in the cell opposite mine. Blimey, how much of that dope are they giving you? Hey, Joe.
Huh?
Lend us a smoke.
Oh, sorry, love. Me last one.
It's odd that she'd happen on the
come
same
in.
day.
Ah, coffee break?
Would you like one?
Well, a very quick one.
Actually, I was looking for you.
Oh?
There's a woman on South Wing, Mrs. Crilly.
Yeah?
Keeps pestering the governor about not getting letters from her daughter. Look into it, could you?
Yes, of course.
There you are.
Oh, thanks.
Wonder how she's feeling this morning.
Yes, it's pretty awful, isn't it?
What do you think of the sentence?
Carol Dalton?
Yeah.
A bit harsh from what I've read of her involvement.
Have you seen her yet?
No, she's on my list for this afternoon.
No, I wouldn't have thought this was anything to do with her lot, would you?
Well, they've claimed responsibility.
Eh?
On the news a few minutes ago.
God, no. When that gets out, we'll have to put her on protection. 2 kids killed. The other women aren't going to like that.
No, you asked her, Greet.
Ask her.
Oh, never mind. Come on. I will. Hello, love. How's it going, then?
Sorry?
I'm Denise. I'm in the Peter opposite you. Saw you come in last night. 15 years. Bit strong, isn't it? This is Greta. Don't say much. 2 stone most of the time, isn't she?
Stoned?
Give 'em 3 large dollops of Largactil every day. Stops her violent urges, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, they giving you any, have they?
What?
Largactil.
Well, the doctor gave me some medicine and I had some more this morning.
Yeah, well, it figures you being a revolutionary and all that.
I didn't have anything to do with the planting or making of bombs.
Oh, that's all right, love. You don't have to convince me. I'm one of your own. I don't suppose you could lend us a smoke, could you, love? I'll get paid tomorrow. I'll give you it back.
Please, come on, some.
Oh, ta, love.
And for your friend as well.
Very nice of you.
Come on now, girls. Keep moving.
I suppose you've got any matches, have you?
No, they wouldn't give me any.
No, us neither. Mine, I've got a friend in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah?
She's on the hot plate dinner time. She bungs a few of me roll for me. Some of the screws go potty if you ring them just for a light. Saves all the aggro. Can I have a light, please, Mrs. Spencer?
Want to sing again, Denise?
Oh, me, miss? No. Offered it, didn't she? Cut this. Nice rolls today. Very light. Know what I mean?
Who's first for the paper?
Me, miss. You can give it to Carol, if you like.
Is that in exchange for the cigarettes? Here you are, Carol. Get an officer to pass it on when you've finished.
Black,
Yes, Chief.
what was that story that you were handing the governor this morning?
Story, Chief.
About the observation unit bell being faulty. I didn't see anything in the book when I checked it yesterday.
No, there wouldn't be. They were perfectly all right yesterday morning. But they are temperamental, you know. Ask the electrician.
Yes, Miss Black. I'll do that.
Oh, hello, Miss Black. Carol Dawson. Oh, she's in there. Thank you. Carol? I'm Miss Clark, welfare. You must have met welfare officers when you were on remand. I brought your application for leave to appeal form along. Now, if you want any help with it, I thought perhaps we could have a chat, see if there's anything I can do. If there's any particular problem. I suppose you've read this.
It's all lies. The PLF will never hurt anyone.
Planting bombs is bound to hurt someone eventually.
I didn't have anything to do with planting any bombs. And there's a question mark here. It's just property, that's all. Well, property's theft.
Carol. Oh, well, you're bound to hear about it sooner or later. It was on the news this morning. The People's Liberation Front have claimed responsibility for that. It was awful. She just kept staring at me. Oh, I just wish I hadn't told her.
Oh, come on. She'd have heard about it soon enough.
That's what I said. I just hope it doesn't. Oh, well, that she can cope with it.
Well, of course she can. Stop worrying. She's gone, I'm afraid.
All right then, Governor. Now for the other prisoners in the unit. What can you tell me about them?
Well, I don't think my personal views will help, Inspector. I can let you have their prison records. Presumably you'll be interviewing Dr. Mays.
Of course.
Well, he should be able to give you some of their psychiatric background, and Miss Clark, the welfare officer, should also be of some help.
Do you have any views on how she may have obtained matches?
No, none.
Mr. Radley?
Have you discovered any evidence to suggest she had matches?
No, the forensic report won't be ready for a few days. Just trying to anticipate possibilities.
None of the inmates of the observation unit is allowed matches.
And where there's a will, there's a way, eh, Mr. Radley? Especially in prisons.
They are quite closely supervised.
Carol Dalton might not think so. Still, I suppose her fate's a kind of poetic justice.
Governor. No, I'm sorry, I have no comment to make. Well, you'll have to get on to the press office about that. No, absolutely no comment. Excuse me. It's the Governor here. I thought I gave instructions that I didn't wish to speak to the press. I see. Well, any further calls from you will direct to the press office. Is that quite clear?
Well, we're flack from the press, bleeding heart groups. You're going to be in for a lot of that, Governor.
Me, Inspector?
You, the prison service, the Home Office. Our Liberal friends will have a field day if you let them. Still, you're doing the right thing, saying nothing.
Is there anything else, Inspector?
No, not for the moment. Except that I'd like a room somewhere I can question the staff involved and the other inmates from the observation unit. Well, Y unit, as you call it.
Yes, of course. I'll arrange a room for you. You'll let us know if there's anything else you want.
Thank you. What do you mean you didn't know what was going on?
I didn't even know there was a fire.
Well, why were you banging on the door?
Because the others were.
Ruth. How long were you banging before anybody came?
I don't know. I haven't got a clock in my cell.
Approximately. Make a guess.
Don't know. Seemed like it was a long time.
Guilty? But why should you feel guilty?
Well, what if she did it on purpose? Perhaps she didn't intend for it to go that far. But the fire got out of hand, no one came in time.
Oh, the officers did everything they could.
If they'd got there quicker...
Now, they say they went straight to the unit as soon as they heard the banging and the shouting.
Well, under the circumstances, they'd have to say that, wouldn't they? Well, I don't know why you're looking like that. I accidentally locked myself in that cell.
You locked yourself in? Well, how on earth did you manage that?
I forgot to slip the lock, simple as that. I rang the bell immediately. No one came for at least 8 to 10 minutes. And only then after I'd rung for a second time.
You told the governor that?
Oh, no, not yet.
Why?
Because I feel it. If I hadn't told the girl about the PLF claiming responsibility, you should have seen her face. She was totally bewildered, stunned. She might still be alive.
Oh, for goodness sake, Liz. She had just been convicted of making bombs.
Oh, no, not according to her, especially not to kill people, children.
She would have learned about the PLF's claims anyway.
Yes, but not from me.
Ages.
How long's that?
25, 30 minutes.
Oh, come on. That's a bit of an exaggeration, isn't it?
No!
How could you tell?
Well, we'd been locked up for the night.
Well?
We'd only just been locked up when banging started. I, undressed, put on my nightie and got into bed. But nobody could sleep with all that racket. Look, I tell you, it went on and on.
Oh, I see. There was a cell on fire, officers rushing around everywhere trying to get you out of your cells, and you undressed and went to bed.
No. In the end, I grew up and banged as well. But I know it was ages and ages before anyone came.
One of the other inmates, Hilary Noakes, says it was 15 minutes before the officers arrived.
Oh, yeah, well, Hilary, I mean, she ain't all that up there, is she?
Oh, now, look, Joe. I realise you won't hold much affection for the staff. But lying in order to...
I'm not lying.
But how can you be so sure of the time that elapsed?
Look, when you're locked up in a cell for 23 out of 24 hours a day, you get to be quite good at estimating time. You want to try it sometime?
I just thought you ought to know.
8 to 10 minutes?
She was quite certain about that, and you know Liz Clark, she's not one to make things up.
Well, it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to get from the centre or the hospital to the observation unit.
It was about that. If the officer responded immediately.
Will there be an inquest and all that?
Yeah,
We'll have to give evidence.
perhaps. Now, this discrepancy between the time the others say and what you say.
Well, I don't care what the others said. Didn't seem that long to me.
Now, tell me again. How long?
Oh, to say exactly. But pretty quick, you know.
I believe you had a chat with her on exercise yesterday, didn't you, Denise?
Yeah, me and Greta. Not that she said a lot.
Oh, Dalton?
No, great.
Oh, that's Miss Gregory.
Yeah. Gotta feel sorry for her, though, ain't you? I mean, it ain't her fault she's a bit doolally. Should be in hospital, really. Not here in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, but what about Dalton? I mean, did she seem friendly, talkative?
She seemed all right. Pretty friendly. Lent us a couple of fags, as a matter of fact.
Would you like one of these?
Oh, that's nice. Ta. The poor old Greek.
I seem to have misplaced my lighter. You haven't got any matches on you, have you?
Not allowed matches down the unit, are we?
Just between you and me, Denise. How difficult would it be for an inmate to get matches down the Y unit?
Just between you and me?
Yeah.
Dunno. Only been down there a week myself. But I'm working on it.
Miss Black is ready to see you now. Come on.
It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yes, Chief, it is that.
That bell was working yesterday. I know that for a fact.
They have been known to go wrong during the night.
Well, I had a word with the electrician. He says they have had trouble with the unit's bell system. Temperamentally, he called it. And after we got her out last night, I checked her bell.
Miss Black swears it didn't ring in the centre.
I know what Miss Black said.
Well, thank you for your help, Miss Black. I think that's all I can usefully ask you at this stage. Would you tell Mrs. Spence I'm ready to see her?
Yes, certainly, Inspector.
Well, Morris, what do you think of Miss Black? I'll be off then, Governor. Mr. Radley?
Bye.
I shouldn't think the coroner will have much difficulty in recording a verdict of accidental death due to misadventure.
When do you think the inquest will be?
Oh, I don't know. Sometime next week, I should think, provided nothing untoward happens.
Untoward?
Well, our Liberal friends, civil rights factions, sure don't want to make political capital over a thing like this. Still, discretion, eh? There's no law saying the inquest has to be advertised. See you there.
Yes, indeed. But then he's only repeating what the department have already said, only his way is more direct.
Stone deaf at Stone Park! Stone deaf at Stone Park! Stone deaf at Stone Park! Stone deaf! Official Secrets Act means official! Carol Dalton was left to die! 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 Carol Dalton.
No more questions, Inspector. Mr. Sims?
No, sir.
Miss Jones?
No, sir.
Thank you, Inspector. So, as the prison's electrician, you're responsible for all the bells being in working order, are you, Mr. Lawton?
Well, the chief engineer takes overall responsibility, sir, but the electrical systems are maintained by myself and an assistant, and of course tested daily by a disciplined staff.
I see. Now, you said earlier that the bell system in the observation or Y unit was temperamental. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, I suppose in simple terms, sir, it's unreliable. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That applies to the cell bells on the main wings in the older section of the prison also. Some of the wiring dates back 30 years or more. Half the prison needs rewiring, except on the security systems. That's always pretty well maintained. But we get a lot of shorts, fuses, that sort of thing on the straightforward domestic services.
Is Y unit in the older part of the prison?
Yes, sir.
Now, you also said that the bells in Y unit are checked daily and the indicator board on the centre tested, and all were found in working order?
Yes, sir.
And indeed, you yourself tested them again after the fire, and they were in working order?
That's correct, sir.
So that if the deceased pressed her bell, and I think we can safely assume that she did so, then it follows logically from your evidence that the bell must have rung. Would you agree with that?
Well, not entirely, sir, if I may make a suggestion. Well, those bell pushes, like the wiring, sir, are pretty old, and a lot of them are stiffened up. I mean, you have to press the button pretty firmly for it to connect up the circuit. I found that the deceased bell was like that. So it occurred to me, and like I say, sir, this is just theorising on my part, but it occurred to me that if she was frightened, in a panic, you know, she might not have pressed that button hard enough, especially as it was a bell she wasn't used to, not having been in the cell very long, as it were.
Interesting observation, Mr. Lawton.
May I add that there were no complaints from prison staff about any bell not working on the day of the fire.
Yes. Now, you've heard the testimony of the forensic officer in which he said that there was no positive physical evidence of what started the fire, and that included any electrical fault. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, sir.
Mr. Sims?
No, I have no questions, sir.
Miss Jones?
Just a couple of points, Mr. Lawton. When you checked Miss Dalton's bell push after the fire, did you also check the other bells in the unit?
Yes, madam, I did.
And were they in working order?
Yes.
Were they, like Miss Dalton's, stiffened up?
Only a couple of them, madam.
So if the other inmates in the unit with the working bell pushes pressed them at the time, it would be safe to say that this would have shown on the indicator board on the centre.
Yes, I suppose so.
There's very little to suppose about it, is there, Mr. Lawton?
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. I now like to hear the testimony of Dr. Peter Mays.
You say she was distraught when she arrived in reception on the day of her conviction?
Yes, very.
Well, when you say distraught, Dr. Mays, do you mean she was hysterical? Crying?
No, it was more a state of shock, numbed. But I did feel, however, that she might become hysterical once the immediate effect of the sentence wore off.
Which is why you prescribed the drug Largactil?
Yes.
Is there anything in her medical record?
Just one moment, please, Mr. Sims, when I get that done.
I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Mays, is there anything in her medical record to indicate that she was of an hysterical nature?
Well, prior to her conviction, she was on remand for 8 months, and during that time she had shown herself to be a highly strung young woman, quite tense at times and given to fits of depression.
With your experience in these matters, Doctor, would you say that she had any suicidal tendencies?
Well, that's extremely difficult to answer with any degree of certainty. Even a trained psychiatrist can't know precisely what another person is thinking. But given that Miss Dalton was, as I say, highly strung and tense, also highly intelligent, very sensitive, it is almost certain that the traumatic effect of imprisonment would cause her more mental stress than most inmates. And of course, remand is the worst period because of the uncertainty, the very real anxiety, apprehension that the inmates feel not knowing what's going to happen to them. So, bearing all that in mind, yes, I'm bound to say that it is possible, even probable, that Miss Dalton could have harboured thoughts of suicide.
Whitewash! Thank you, Dr. Mays.
Let me get this quite clear in my own mind, Doctor. Are you saying that you think that the deceased may have deliberately set fire to her cell in a determined effort to end her own life?
No, sir, I'm not. I'm simply saying that it's possible that she may have.
Dr. Mays. The autopsy report states quite categorically that Miss Dalton died of asphyxiation, that is to say, suffocation through lack of oxygen. So in this sense, we know the cause of death. What we don't know, what we must determine, are the circumstances surrounding this tragedy which allowed or caused it to happen. On this we must be quite certain.
Yes.
Yes. Now, although we have yet to hear the testimony of the prison officers who discovered Miss Dalton's body, in their statements to Inspector Worth, they say she was lying just inside the cell door. In fact, they had to push the door against the body in order to enter the cell, which would suggest, would it not, that Miss Dalton had in fact been trying to attract attention to the fire by ringing her bell and calling for help. Would you agree to that possibility?
Well, yes, of course.
Of course. Now, we all know that there are any number of ways in which a person so minded could destroy themselves, but would you not agree that to set fire to oneself, or to a cell from which there is no escape, would be the act of a particularly disturbed mind?
Yes, it would.
We have heard your professional opinion on Miss Dalton's state of mental health, Doctor. Highly strung, given to fits of depression, intelligent, sensitive. Is that the diagnosis of a very disturbed mind?
Well, no. No, it isn't.
Of course it isn't.
No. This drug you prescribed for Miss Dalton, Largactil, would I be right in saying that it is a depressant drug?
Yes, but that's not to say that it causes depression, as many people mistakenly believe.
Does it? Of course it does.
What are its effects?
Oh, basically, it's a sedative.
That is to say that it eases tension, lessens functional activity.
Yes?
Causes the user to become languid, indifferent to what is going on around them.
No, not necessarily indifferent. Passive would be a better word.
Passive. Relaxed.
Yes?
Certainly not a drug, then, that would be likely to cause anyone taking it to harbour aggressive thoughts against anyone or against themselves.
No, I did not say that Miss Dalton had committed suicide.
You suggested the possibility, Doctor. What dosage had you prescribed for Miss Dalton?
200 milligrams to be taken orally 3 times a day.
And on the day she died, she'd received all 3 doses.
Yes.
So the drug would certainly have taken effect, causing the symptoms described.
Yes.
Then I must put it to you, Doctor, that any thoughts of suicide which you suggest she may have harboured would almost certainly have been negated by the time the fire started. Is that
I
not
did
so?
say that it was only a possibility. Perhaps I ought to have said that it was an outside possibility.
Or an impossibility, Doctor.
Right, of course it is.
I appreciate the point you've been at pains to establish, Miss Jones, but this is an inquest. Dr. Mays is not on trial here, nor indeed are any of the other witnesses. I trust you understand me?
I was simply trying to point out an obvious ambiguity in Dr. May's testimony, sir.
Yes, so less of the courtroom tactics, if you please. Thank you, Dr. Mays. You must step down. Unless, of course, there is something else you wish to say.
No, sir.
I must ask for silence from the public benches, or I may have to clear the court. I would now like to hear from Denise Brown.
Take the book in your right hand. Repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That I will speak the truth.
That I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
You're Denise Brown?
Yes, sir.
At present a prisoner in Stone Park Prison.
Yes, sir.
Now, Miss Brown, what time would you say elapsed between finishing your supper and the officers leaving the unit?
Not long, sir. About 5 minutes.
And that's when you say you first heard Miss Dalton knocking on her cell door and calling out the cell was on fire?
Yes, sir.
What did you do then?
Well, I looked through my spile. Mine hasn't got a cover on it, you see, sir, so I could see Carol's cell opposite quite clearly. And I saw all this smoke seeping out from round the door frame like. Well, straight away I started ringing me bell and began shouting for help. I even took off my shoe and started banging on the door with that, so I was making plenty of noise. Then the other girls in the unit joined in, and between us we were making a hell of a racket, I can tell you.
And it was soon after you started making this noise that the officers arrived and opened the cell doors?
Oh, no, sir. It was a long while later. Near half hour, I'd say.
What? Try and get yourself out of this.
I must have silence. You did say half an hour.
Yes, sir. Give or take 5 minutes. I had blisters on my hand and my voice was gone practically from all the banging and shouting I'd been doing.
But in your statement to the police the day following the fire, you said in answer to Inspector Worth's inquiry about how long they'd been in coming, it's hard to say exactly, but pretty quick.
Well, I had to lie then, sir, didn't I?
Why?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it, sir? I'm the only con from the unit that's been allowed to give evidence. Doesn't that seem a bit odd to you, sir?
Odd to me.
You see, sir, the others weren't asked because they told the truth about how long it was before any of the officers arrived. But I lied deliberately because I thought it might put me in with a chance to give evidence here and tell the truth about what really happened. And that's what I intend to do.
Good for you. Take their own medicine.
You do realise the implications of what you're saying, Miss Brown?
All I know, sir, is that if someone had come a bit quicker to unlock that cell, Carol wouldn't be dead, would she?
How can you... How can you be so certain of the time that elapsed between you ringing your bell and the officers arriving?
I just am. Look, sir, I'm not trying to say the screws knew Carol's cell was on fire. Couldn't have, could they? Because they weren't there. I'm just trying to tell you that you can ring your bell at times in Nick for ages, and no one bothers to answer it. And they should. I mean, it's not the first time something like this has happened. There's been 2 or 3 cases.
We're not talking about other cases here, Miss Brown.
No. That's the trouble, isn't it? No one's concerned about what really goes on in a prison.
If no one was concerned, Miss Brown, this inquest would not be taking place.
Well, that's the law when someone dies in dodgy circumstances, isn't it, sir? Nothing you can do about that. But say Carol had just been badly burnt, scarred for life, then no one would have heard about it. Because once you're behind those walls, the only law is their law.
Well, it's about time we changed it. In our office. I started to leave, and when I opened the door, I heard a commotion. I was the first officer to arrive at the unit.
So your attention had been drawn by the banging and shouting?
Yes, sir.
Not the bells?
No, sir.
So as chief officer, you're responsible for checking that your officers have tested all cell bells and alarm bells?
That is so, sir.
Will you please tell the court the exact procedure?
Certainly, sir. Each wing has a book. I have one here, sir.
Thank you.
On the left-hand side, you'll see a list of cells, 1, 2, 3, etc., and the landing on which they're located. A wing officer will go around every day, usually in the mornings, and ring each bell so that she hears it ring and make sure that the flap has fallen so that each cell can be easily identified. She'll then put a tick in the book and go on to the next one. When it is completed, she initials the book with the date under the column and brings it to my office. I examine it to make sure that the ticks are all there. I then initial each book with the date.
And if the bell is not working?
It is reported immediately to the works officer, sir.
According to your book, all bells were working the morning before the fire?
Yes, sir. And may I say that the bells of Y unit, that's the observation unit, are always very carefully tested.
Now, Mrs. Armitage,
Oh,
I would
come on, get to your verdict. How about criminal negligence or just plain old-fashioned
Officer,
murder?
remove that person from the court immediately. And that one too, remove both of them.
How is it possible for someone to be burned to death by an observation unit, for God's sake? Look, you can silence us, but you can't silence the press. Carol Dalton was left to die. Carol Dalton was left to die.
As the duty officer for the observation unit that evening, you were responsible for checking the inmates.
Yes, sir.
How often did you do this?
Every 20 minutes, sir.
Now, you were present when the inmates of the unit were given their supper at 7:30.
Yes, sir.
And you say you'd previously checked the unit at 7:10.
That's right, sir.
Now, everything was in order, was it?
Yes, sir.
You said you gave the deceased a light for her cigarette, as indeed you did to 3 of the other inmates.
Yes, sir.
And just so there's no doubt in the jury's mind, Miss Black, you're quite sure, are you not, that you gave the deceased a light from your lighter? You did not give her a match.
That's correct, sir.
And we've heard from the forensic officer that the deceased smoked a tobacco commonly used for self-made cigarettes, a tobacco with a negligible saltpeter content.
I think, Mr. Sims, you may safely leave it to me to assess the findings of the forensic officer for the jury.
As you say, sir. So, it would have been, give or take a minute, about 8 o'clock when you left the unit.
Yes, sir.
How long was it after that you heard the alarm bell?
Well, let's see. I went from the unit through the hospital wing and checked with the duty nurse. Then I went to the centre and had a word with the night orderly. That must have taken about 6 or 7 minutes. And then on my way down the administration corridor, I heard the alarm bell and returned to the centre.
And you definitely didn't hear the indicator board bell for the observation unit ringing before that?
No, sir.
Could the alarm bell be confused with the bell on the indicator board?
Oh, no, it's quite distinct from that.
And what happened then when you got back to the centre?
Oh, another officer came in and shouted out trouble in Y unit.
And when you heard this, you rushed straight back to the unit?
Yes, sir.
When you say rushed, Miss Black, you mean rush?
We always run when the alarm bell is sounded, sir.
So, if we add up the time from the moment you left Y unit to the moment you returned, not more than 12 minutes would have elapsed?
Probably less, sir.
Thank you, Miss Black.
Thank you.
As you can see, Mrs. Marshall, the damage to the cell is quite extensive.
Yes, I did see the cell shortly after the tragedy.
During your career in the prison service, have you seen many cells that have been subjected to fire of this kind?
No, this is the first.
So you'd have no way of estimating how long it might take for that amount of damage to be done?
None at all. And frankly, I don't know why you're asking me.
I must confess, neither do I, Miss Jones.
I simply thought that comparison with anything similar, which the witness may have seen before, would be useful, sir.
I don't see the relevance, Miss Jones.
Very well, sir. That mattress in the cell, Mrs. Marshall, it's made of polyurethane. Are all the mattresses in the prison made of the same material?
Yes, it's standard issue.
The forensic officer seems to think that they are extremely distasteful things to have around. Do you agree with that?
Well, I have no control over what is or is not issued in the way of bedding, furniture, or for that matter, any standard prison equipment.
That wasn't my question, Mrs. Marshall. Do you agree that they are dangerous?
Well, they are more comfortable than the type of mattress previously issued. They were made out of coir, which I imagine is just as inflammable.
Dangerous?
Yes, I suppose so. But only if subjected to misuse, like many things.
I'm talking here of the use of what is clearly a dangerous material in an observation unit, Mrs. Marshall. A place where, in most instances, inmates who are suffering from some degree of mental instability are locked up for 23 hours a day. Now, surely, as governor, you are in a position to recommend that dangerous material should be kept out of such a unit.
I repeat, I am not responsible for policy decisions of that kind.
The governor of a prison, like the captain of a ship, is ultimately responsible for everything that occurs in their domain, are they not?
Are you suggesting...
Mrs. Marshall, a young girl has died in circumstances which could only be described as disturbing. Now, someone or something is responsible, are they not?
Come in.
Ah, I just wondered if you'd heard anything yet.
The inquest?
Yes.
No, not yet. I wouldn't worry too much.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it should be all right.
What should be all right?
Well, the inquest, the findings.
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Something wrong?
No, I want to know what you mean when you say it should be all right.
Well, simply that the verdict will be...
Favourable to the department.
Come along, love. What's troubling you?
Oh, attitude. Yes, I suppose you might say attitude.
Attitude?
The general attitude I seem to be finding around here in respect to Carol Dalton's death and the outcome of the inquest.
I'm afraid I'm not with you.
Well, I came in here to find out if you'd heard anything, and you immediately presume I'm worried that a verdict may be returned that reflects badly on the prison, on the department.
Well,
You did, didn't you?
I wasn't thinking anything. Look, her death was an accident,
does
Liz.
that matter?
Well, of course it matters. No one's going to let a thing like that happen deliberately.
No, I'm not suggesting
Look, I just
that...
want to understand this hostility.
It's because I'm bloody angry. Angry and ashamed.
What in God's name have you got to be ashamed about?
I'm ashamed of colleagues whose only concern seems to be whether or not they'll be held responsible for what happened to that girl.
Oh, come along, that's grossly unfair. We were all deeply concerned.
No, I'm sorry, that isn't my impression.
Well, you're wrong. What happened was tragic, terrible. But there's no escaping the fact that that fire must have been started by Carol Dalton herself. The staff were on duty at the time, Peter Mays. Everyone did everything possible to save that girl. I know that, and so must
yes,
you.
But for God's sake, that isn't the point. Don't you see? It doesn't matter if she started the fire or why or how it happened. And it happened here, in this prison. She was under our care, our protection. And she died, trapped in a bloody locked cell. And all anyone can say is it's terrible, tragic. But it wasn't our fault. Especially that.
Well, that's what prisons are, Liz. A collection of bloody locked cells. Are the staff that run them to be blamed for that?
Oh, I don't know, Charles. I really don't know. But I do know I'm sickened by a system that is more concerned with protecting its own image than admitting it's somewhat less than perfect.
There is no doubt that Carol Dalton died of asphyxiation. Her cell was not big, about 7 feet by 8, and it had only one small air vent, which means that the oxygen in there would soon be used up in the event of even a moderate fire, and we know from the photographs that the fire in the cell was in fact quite extensive. Now, we have not been able to establish how the fire started. Miss Black told us that she gave the deceased a light for her cigarette just before locking her up for the night. And we know from forensics that the tobacco in that type of cigarette has a very low saltpeter content. so that it tends to go out unless frequently drawn upon. Now, this does not mean that the deceased could not have used her cigarette to start the fire herself if she so wished. The mattress, we know, was highly inflammable. It was thought unlikely, but not impossible. Now, there has been some controversy about how much time elapsed between the fire starting and the officers arriving in the unit. Miss Brown, the inmate of the cell directly opposite the deceased, said in evidence 20 to 30 minutes. Now, this was a flat contradiction of the statement she had made earlier to the police, and which she now says was a lie. Now, we've heard a great deal about the efficiency or otherwise of the bell system in Y Unit, but Mrs. Spencer, the principal officer, has said that she went immediately to the unit on hearing the shouting and banging. And Miss Black stated that only 12 minutes elapsed between the time she left the unit and returned. There does seem little doubt that once the main alarm was sounded, the officers concerned did everything in their power to save the deceased. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I will in a moment direct you as to the various verdicts you may consider. But before I do, I'm sure you'd wish to join me in offering our deepest condolences to the parents of the deceased for the tragic loss of their only daughter.
Well?
They returned an open verdict.
But that's ridiculous.
Nevertheless, that's what they did.
But that means... Well, what does it mean?
It means they're not satisfied from the evidence that it was an accident.
Or suicide.
Or misadventure.
Well, what does that leave?
It leaves a great big embarrassing cloud of doubt.
Which might mean another inquiry to take their conclusions further.
Yeah, maybe Liz Clark was right. Well, whatever the cause, it should never have happened, should it?